This story, married British zoologist. This is all over the Australian newspapers, which I read. It's a Brit who went out 20 years ago to Australia. He's a crocodile expert. He's been on the BBC. He's hosted David Attenborough, all of this sort of thing. He's pleaded guilty to raping puppies and torturing more than 40 dogs, including his own pets, at his Australian animal shelter. He lured the owners to give him custody of their beloved canines. This is Adam Britton, 51 years of age, tortured and sexually exploited them for notoriety online. His wife has changed the name, moved away, didn't know it was going on because she was touring a lot of the time. But this is horrific. But what's more horrific is that if he'd been found guilty of doing this in the UK, what would he have got? A couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, over there, the maximum that you can get is 10. He's pleaded guilty. He's probably going to end up doing about 8 years as a result of the guilty plea. I mean, I have to say, immediate reaction, one of shock and disgust, and also hesitation over whether we can even do justice to this. Trisha, we don't just tell legal quips and tell funny legal stories on this segment. It's about exploring hard cases, straight talking, TalkTV, right? We'll have to talk about some of the detail. Extreme vulnerability of animals, tortured, not just mistreated, and the extreme calculation of how he coaxed owners to trust him. But you're right, as far as sentence is concerned, over in Australia, he's going to be looking at 7 or 8 years, because it's about the worst you can even imagine. I've certainly never acted in an animal cruelty case as bad as this, and I've acted in dozens. The old law in the UK, for those types of activities that I'm not going to say like on air with animals, it was a maximum lifetime of penal servitude. And some people might say, quite right, I'm a bit more liberal than that, but in this case, not much I have to say. But under Section 69 of our new law, the Sexual Offences Act 2003 is relatively new for us lawyers, the maximum sentence for that offence is only 2 years. Having said that, maximum sentence of 5 years for animal cruelty, but consecutive sentences are unlikely. So I actually think if something like this happened, and guess what? This guy was from Yorkshire.
Yes.
He may well have committed these crimes here. Certainly he was calculating.
Well, he said himself that he said online, because I had all the online messages, that he'd slipped back into this behaviour, suggesting that it was going on before. So it could have been. He was from Yorkshire and he had a whole online community. There are people watching and into this stuff from all over the world, including probably Britain. So you're telling me if they got caught, they might get put away, and you don't even want to know. Joseph and I can't talk about the details of what he did to those dogs. And these are family pets. He coaxed from people, and he will get 2 years. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, he'd get charged and convicted of animal cruelty too. He'd get 5. Or close to it. The problem is if he pleaded guilty, and here I am, a defense lawyer, talking about a sentence not being harsh enough, and you know that I have a fairly liberal and constructive approach to sentencing. We were just talking about it in the last story regarding drugs offences, for example, weren't we? But, a third off 5 years, out after half the sentence in likelihood. The sentencing is inadequate for something like this, and this should actually be a bit of a warning shot that the way in which we treat offences, especially sexual offences, in the very small number of cases that they happen, and it's less than you can count on one hand a year that come before the courts. But I think we probably need to look at new legislation here, not for all cases, but certainly for cases. If this is the maximum sentences must reflect the extent of the depravity and the transgression against the innocence of these wonderful animals.
Little puppies. couldn't agree with you more, Joseph. Thank you. I'm sorry that we have to end on such a horrific note, but I do hope that someone out there hears what we're saying, because, as I say, this guy had followers online and what have you, and I suspect it's the tip of an iceberg. It could be a few cases that come to court, but my God, there needs to be some vicious kind of deterrent there. Joseph, always a pleasure talking with you and highlighting the good, the bad, and the downright legally ugly.